This is Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy. And I'm your host, Katie Elizabeth. I want to talk to you tonight about what is not part of being ready. As our Messiah said, be ready. You know, I've got the map here behind me, and the world is just getting more and more critical continuously. You know, we've got all kinds of things going on in the Ukraine, Venezuela. Things are getting more intense. And as we see this unfold, what are some of the things that we're busy about that is not part of getting to the place that Messiah told us to be ready? And I'm also going to say on this list that I'm sharing tonight, not all of these things are wrong at all. It's a matter of keeping the priorities and keeping them in proper perspective according to the teachings of Torah and the example of Yeshua. Number one, what is not be ready? Stockpiling ammo. And I'm not saying we should give up the Second Amendment at all. I'm not saying that. As a matter of fact, if we want meat, and I do, we do need a humane way to kill and process it. I can't answer what I would do in the case of feeling threatened because I haven't been there in these last days. I haven't faced what we may be facing, so I can't say how it should be done, and I certainly can't tell another what to do. But I do find it very discomforting that there's a growing number of people who call themselves believers that are verbalizing their potential ease at killing another human being. I find that just discomforting. We must be diligent in our search of what it is to follow Messiah as these end of days become more violent. I don't have the answer on that one, but I'm seeking it. Now, the second thing is the focus on the enemy. And whether that's spiritual or physical. Once we focus on the enemy and get so immersed in that focus, we lose our focus of Messiah. And we can very easily replace our fear of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh with fear of an enemy, which is idolatry, and it's not even enjoyable idolatry. To live under that fear is a horrible, horrible way to live. Fear of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh is the beginning of wisdom. And waiting for Washington to come up with solutions or stop plans in motion can also be idolatry and placing our faith in a system and a party. And that's not our Creator. Fearing terrorism has taken the nation from freedom in international travel to needing to show ID to cross the street. And I know I did quite a bit of traveling in 1999. And it wasn't much more than, getting on a bus. It was, you get your ticket, we're just about to that point in this country of having to have our ID throughout our own country as we're walking, as we're traveling. As Islam spreads through our country, people are becoming increasingly more afraid of law enforcement than, the terrorist. Or the line between has been blurred and redefined. So the focus on the enemy has caused us to actually lose our freedom nationally. We don't want to do that spiritually. Now, I've been guilty of this next one myself, and that's making work out of living. While some of us are aiming to simplify, I've noticed two big major hurdles of which we need to take note. Some folks are spending a fortune in preparing and simplifying. And others are just making so much work out of being alive. There needs to be a moderation and a balance. We can get so caught up in what we're doing here on earth that, again, we lose sight. Yeshua said, when you see these things begin to come to pass, look up. And we can be so busy making work out of being alive that we don't. We need to definitely learn skills of simplicity. It is our responsibility to keep alive the agrarian skills and the sufficiency arts of thousands of years. I mean, there are things I remember as a child watching my grandma do that I didn't learn how to do, and I don't, when I've asked the question, nobody else knows. It's already gone. I'm not 60 years old. She passed, a little over 10 years ago. That art's gone, to my knowledge, at least for my practical application of it. And I'm sure each of us can look at something in our own lives and family that nobody does anymore. Grandma did that. Grandpa did that. It is up to us to keep alive those skills that we did learn. And to learn some if we can, because simplicity does require hanging on to those skills. And it will also require some investment. But the point is to move away from an ongoing expense and dependency. Now, next on my list is compromise. In being ready, compromise is unacceptable. That's not to say we know everything or that we can't admit when we need to learn something new. But compromise in the sense of going along to get along. We're not to do that. Getting up towards the last on my list is I want to talk about buying gold and the survival food packets, because those have both been very big in the last few years. Between the sponsors of all the talk radio with Buy Your Gold, and there's nothing wrong with having some gold and silver or investment other than American currency, because we all know it's just paper. But we do need to also be careful, because at the point in time, and it seems like the momentum is building, when we get to the point of no buying and selling without the mark, gold and silver is still buying and selling. So that won't be an option, and you can't eat it. You can't eat gold or silver, and if you can't buy and sell, it's virtually worthless. I'm thinking maybe it might be, for a few years, pay our taxes, maybe. I don't know. But when it's all said and done, there are so many things that are just basic food and shelter needs that those are things that, literally we need to learn how to get back to just doing and providing on a sustainable level. Now I want to talk for a minute about the survival, storage, food, and all that. There are three things. It's very clearly portioned for rationing. So the idea of, just sharing is going to be an odd notion when you feel like life has gotten to the point that those are necessary. And these packages that I checked one as I was doing this research, and there's one that it costs over $400, and it's designed to have rationed portioned meals, drinks, and snacks for one person for 90 days. That's not sustainable in the long run. And that would only sustain 3 people for 1 month. Again, making sharing very difficult. And then there's the other factor of all the orders are recorded and tracked to the shipping address. So, as the end of days unfold, Messiah warned of a time, that you wouldn't even be able to go back and get your coat. You wouldn't be able to go back in their house. So if you've stored all these packets somewhere, well, I guess that would be the sharing, because, in the panic, maybe someone else will come across that stored stash, but they're going to know where the food supplies are. These are trackable purchases. If, on the other hand, that person took $400, invested in seeds, chickens, and gasoline to get to an established homestead by faith, taking talents and an honest work ethic, you're looking at a perpetual food supply that can be shared. I know when I was working inner city in ministry, and even overseas in ministry in orphanages. You would be amazed at how many people, one chicken, a head of cabbage, some, a bag of flour and some eggs to make noodles. You'd be amazed at how many people that feeds. Ongoing. And you're not looking at little portion, and what, a chicken, even if you bought all that at the store, a chicken and a head of cabbage and a bag of flour and a dozen eggs or 2 dozen eggs, even if you bought all that at the store, that's probably come in under $10 to feed a number of people for as long as the chicken stayed good. Those are the things we need to get the mindset of. Those are the things. The Revelation tells us some believers will be martyrs. It's simply a fact of life we must not forget. We can only do so much. Be ready. As a matter of fact, back when I believed the pre-tribulation rapture theory, I actually started putting things in place for the people who would be left behind. And I never read that series. But I was. We've got to get a hold of that. Our God will take care of this, and that's not at the expense of others. But our abundant blessings are going to be able to share that. So in the quick overview, let me find my paper here. How about a John Stewart moment? Let me find my paper. Okay. A list of 7 that we need to keep in perspective. Stockpiling ammo is not a necessity. A gun and a few bullets to get some food is a good idea. And, I know there's a lot of men who feel that is their way of protecting their family, their place. I'm not saying against that. Most of us are, it doesn't take a lot of wisdom to know the difference between a supply and a stockpile. Focusing on the enemy, that robs us of our own freedom and peace. Waiting for Washington to fix things. Let's see. Twiddle the thumbs. Because I think that's what they're doing. Fearing terrorism has literally shut down our own rights. Making work out of living. I guess that keeps us busy. Learning the skills is wonderful. Appreciating the conveniences while we still have them is not bad either. No compromise. If you've heard Yehovah say it, do it. If you've heard him say don't do it, don't. If it's in the word, be obedient. Find gold and find precious metals and survival food packets will still only last so long in the event it's actually needed. In the event of the collapse of the dollar, and in the event of a food, the supply collapsing, those 2 items will only last so long. This has been Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy. I'm Katie Elizabeth.